Welcome, everyone, to the Lead Generation World Podcast. My name is Michael Faree. We've got a great show today. We've got Luke Ashworth from Adviser.ai, a UK-based company helping insurance companies close more deals that they wouldn't close otherwise, which we love, companies that do this sort of stuff. So it's a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. But we get into a lot of stuff about life and work balance and one's perspective and how that can affect those two things. And so it's a great conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. On another note, Lead Generation World London is still taking place. It's going to be in October. We all pray that the coronavirus and all the things that we're dealing with now will be under wraps by then, and we have a homecoming of sorts at Lead Generation World London in October. We've got registration that's going to be It's going to be opening up in next week on the 25th. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're interested in being on the podcast, give me a buzz at mike@leadgenerationworld.com, and we'll schedule some time to chat. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and bring Luke in and start chatting. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Lead Generation World Podcast. My name is Mike. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a great conversation with Luke Ashworth here from Adviser.ai. Luke, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Now, we were introduced, I think, maybe a couple months ago from Al at Contact State, right?
Yeah. Al and I go way back.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking, if you start talking, it's one of those things in the lead generation world, I guess, where you start to think about the year that actually happened, and it's not nice to do the maths back. You start realizing how long ago it was.
Yeah. And I always think that the digital marketing and lead gen world is like dog years, right? For every, 1 year is like really like 3 years in the industry. So, if you've been in it for 10 years, it feels like 30.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I think with the other thing is when you then look back at that is how little you actually knew at the time that you thought you knew.
Yeah.
It was incredible, especially in that dawning age of lead gen.
Yeah.
I mean, I started mine in 2003. I think Al was not long after that, but I've been involved in the likes of, I've been an affiliate for the likes of eSpotting before that. Yeah. So they became Miva, if you remember, so the eSpotting and Miva. So yeah, I was one of their largest affiliates before then. So, and you just think back, it was, God, you know what, the other bit, honestly, I think it was easy to make money then as well.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, because you're in it, it's that gold rush at first, isn't it? Where you've got an idea, you've spotted it, only a few people are in it. And it was, it was a nice place to be at the time. It was lots of fun.
So you were a online marketing manager back then in 2002 for Novatech, and you were there for a couple years. And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and then after that, you went off to found a massive lead gen company, and you grew that. Tell me, how do you go from online marketing manager to starting a?
Well, I mean, it was actually driven by the fact that I had a young family at the time, and I'm sitting there going, right, I'm 23, and I'm going, how do I manage to basically take that career and make this amount of money? It wasn't that I was after 911s or big houses at the time. It was more about security for my son and so on and so forth. I think honestly, it was just spotting I did at the time. I think one of the funniest things was actually when my last boss, we're still friends today, David Furby, called me out. He's the guy that owns Novatech. He called me out the fact that I must have been doing stuff while I was working for him, which I was. I think most people usually are in that scenario. I think, look, I do look back at that time. One of the, I guess the reasons for me was that I had dabbled in consultancy. So, I mean, I have a website now, lukeashworth.com, which is much more focused on speaking. But at the time, I originally registered that domain name for consultancy. Shows how good I was at branding back then, i.e. not at all. But I basically put I tried the consultancy thing. And what I couldn't understand was why, when I consulted for somebody, particularly in the online marketing space, the rewards, if I did really well, were so much greater than that which I'd get paid. and more importantly, if I failed, I would get paid anyway. And I didn't really like that. I thought that was a bit silly because I don't like losing. I'm definitely not. I like to make sure that I succeed at what I do. So that, well, I'm always going to make sure this works. I'm not going to take on some work where I can't make it work. Why shouldn't I be getting the upside? And to me, that's what originally affiliate marketing and lead generation were all about.
So tell me about that business. I mean, so you were consulting potentially, you were learning a lot in the industry, and you said, I can do this on my own.
Yeah, I think. Well, I did have this grand plan. I think I was also one of those very insecure on the inside entrepreneurs. So had a desire to prove. It was how big could I get it? How fast could I grow it? What awards could I win? How could I be bigger, better, richer? All of that sort of stuff. And I think that really drove the growth of the business at the time. But there's also kind of some uniqueness to it. I had a set of domain names. I had accepted.co.uk, protected.co.uk, connected.co.uk, sorted.co.uk. I had this lovely set of domain names. So the whole idea was build multiple brands and then a sort of set of lead gen sites off the back of them.
Yeah. So what was it like in 2003, 2008, trying to sell, leads? Generate how was it like?
Honestly, as long as you
Yeah.
were good at it, it was cool. If you got the
Yeah.
right deals. I mean, I remember for those in lead gen, this will be fun. I remember the days when a secured loan click, I think, was maybe about £8.
Yeah.
So I could basically, with conversion rates of about 30% odd, I could pick up a lead for 20 odd quid. Then I realized that actually the best way to do it was to go on back end commission, because even it was worth taking the balance sheet risk, because if you went on back end commission, I'd probably earn about £120 for a lead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's at the maximum part of the market, but those margins were huge. That's right at the start. The problem is as with all these scenarios over the course of time, people get wise to it. So, if you roll the clock forward, a few years, certainly once the recession kicked in, that's when it got tough. Because, and I always think back, by the way, imagine if I'd done something different. There was another guy at the same time as me, a guy called Neil Hutchinson. He'd started what became a big business called Forward. And he'd chosen to go the non-financial services route. Well, I'd gone financial services. He ended up being worth 500 million. I ended up with hitting the recession in 2007 going, ah!
Yeah.
So, I mean, work of that what you will. I think it spread to go sort of multiple across, effectively retail across the market. In hindsight, was a better way to build a business. Please understand, I'm very grateful for my journey, so I'd never take that away. But I think spreading the risk was always the plan. My problem is that financial services as a whole got hit quite badly in 2007, 2008. It pulled apart some businesses, even in industries that weren't affected by immediately, were hit quite badly as far as their ongoing businesses were concerned, just because the businesses weren't necessarily run well enough. That meant you start getting lots of bad debt, and that really, really hurt the business.
What do you think would be different today? Had you trying to start that company today in today's environment? Would you think it'd be easier, or more acceptable, harder, more challenging
No,
because there's so much more
definitely harder.
competition? Or
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, one of the things that we're facing, surely the job in any business is about reinvention, right? So we were talking before, we started recording. What's going to happen now? I've just developed a software business which I'm just about to start pushing, and actually, right now, after 2 years of development, another kind of 4, 5, 6 months of beta, I'm ready now to sell my product, and coronavirus comes in. Oh dear, that's not a good time to be selling your product. A bit like you with the conference in October. Now it's far enough away at the moment to not be as a concern to some people that have got their events the next 2 or 3 months. But as the weeks tick by, it could be we've got another 12 weeks of kind of lockdown over here. That poses some challenges. And I guess in essence, it's, when I look at all of these things, it's our ability to reinvent and face the challenges that are in front of us. I think the difference today is that if you say what it would be like today, well, it would be totally different, because there's no where everyone knows so much more. It's forced us to reinvent and reinvent and reinvent and reinvent. I think if, for example, you look at Google advertising, which is back then was where a lot of our leads came from, well, all the brands are in there, all the big guns are in there. You've got huge, certainly in financial services, massive price comparison websites where their CTRs are so low because of their TV spend, their quality scores are through the roof. So it's a very, very difficult environment to go in. So reinvent. Where else can you get your stuff from? Where else can you get your leads from?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to think, when we look back at different times in our careers, where and how timing was so important to, different things and different success or failures for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, but you say that it's about timing. I was going to say as well, it's about timing can also be too early. See, I
Yeah,
think one of my issues, honestly, I almost got in too early because the margins were so huge where in the bit I was in,
yeah,
well, you just sit there and that's it. Yay.
yeah. Took it
Happy
easy.
days. You just, whereas if you launched a little bit later, it just keeps you a bit keener.
Yeah,
If you got to work a bit harder for what you get, it's going to force you to learn a bit more. Whereas, to be frank, my first lead gen website in 2003 accepted the loan one. I got it built by a guy. I paid 400 quid for the domain name. I got it built by a Russian guy for 250 quid. I did the design myself in Photoshop, and it still made that amount of money.
yeah.
That's ridiculous. That shows that it was a bit too easy, and I just happened to be good at spotting an opportunity as much as anything else. So I think there can be as much danger in going early as there can be being
Yeah.
late.
So was it the thought that it was easy that also got you into the other side of the table and actually selling protection services as well from the buy side? How do you flip from that side?
I think it was a combination of a big bad debt of about £1 million during the recession. A third of my business, that was in the life insurance area, a third of my business disappeared overnight because that was mortgages and secured loans. And I was left really with just debt management. So I built 3 legs thinking if one fell, the other 2 would be okay. Unfortunately, 2 legs went and one with a giant debt. So I had to do something. The trouble is when ego then kicks in, and I always say this to people that I'm mentoring that are in their 20s now in business. They say, "Why do you want to build something?" Yeah, because they say like, I don't want
Yeah,
to set up
sure.
this massive event, or I want to build
Yeah.
this." I say, "Why do you want to do it?" And like, because I do. And I think at 20, which I would have been, 23, I would have been sort of 29 by then, 28, 29. I was still in my 20s. I was still used to that money. I was still used to that whole ego thing of proving something. I wanted to build something huge. I Part of it was the desire to build something massive. I saw an opportunity in a business to build the direct line of life insurance. Now, people in the UK will know Direct Line. It was started in the 80s by Peter Wood. It was one of the first car insurance businesses, as opposed to being intermediated, basically stacked it up. So basically took the marketing, the sales, and the insurance all under one roof.
Yeah.
And nothing like that exists in the UK. And I saw that we had the online marketing and you had the ability to do the telesales. So I thought, hey, that's a cool opportunity, but hold my hands up. I wanted to build a big brand. I wanted to satisfy my ego. I wanted to go, look at me, I've built Protected. And I'd worked out that a 5% market share that I could do by 2016 would have been worth 200 million because a company called Aegeus had been sold to AIG for the same amount. And I knew I could do that without any funding externally from anywhere. And I'd be worth a couple of 100 million.
Yeah.
That was honestly the thought plan in my head.
You know what? You say it though in a way that it's almost I sense a tone in your voice that it sounds like you're almost ridiculous in thinking that.
Oh, by the way, it wasn't that I was ridiculous. It's that me on my own journey, I have very different aspirations these days.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that is caused by my personal journey that we've talked about. I guess for me, I've experienced then some pretty huge loss.
Yeah.
And for me, there are other things in the world that are way more important. Don't get me wrong. I'm building this next software business so that I can pay off a lovely house, have a lovely life. When I have a family again, to be in a situation where I don't necessarily, have to go to work in the morning. I can take the kids to school. I can pick them up from school. I could, all of those lovely things that build a really nice, balanced life. I guess. Well, look, anyone that's known me since then, ask Al, for God's sake. Al would have known me back then. Everyone knew what Luke was like. I think I was nice with it. I don't think I was a complete, I wasn't one of those. I'd still be a nice person with it. But there was definitely a lot of ego in me sort of driving what it was I wanted to create. And I don't think that does. Don't get me wrong, there are some people out there that do that and they become very successful and they buy bigger boats, they buy nicer cars and bigger houses. But I guess I have a slightly different approach these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just interesting, to hear, retrospect, looking in retrospect on, things that you go through in your life and how you, look at them now and maybe think that that was a little ridiculous or maybe not. But
Yeah, it's not. By the way, I think it's almost. I think it's less so than ridiculous.
yeah,
I think it's almost sweet to look back on.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And by
yeah,
sweet, I mean, oh, look at that little boy that kind of thought he knew what he was doing.
yeah,
You know, it's sort of it's that sort of viewpoint as opposed to you ridiculous thing. You know, if a kid comes home from school and says, "Dad, I want to go to the moon," I don't say it's ridiculous. I say that's sweet. That's
yeah,
how lovely is that? And I think that's more the way that I look at it. I do think, and I think in essence, remember, I wouldn't be where I was today unless I'd had that experience. I would never, by the way, if anyone out there wants to build a couple of 100 million business or a unicorn or whatever, please be my guest.
yeah.
That's not, it's
You're
entirely
not
down to you.
crushing their dreams right now.
God, no, 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 no. I'm just saying me. And I
Yeah, yeah.
think it's important to listen to everybody's viewpoint. So if you are, if there is, if someone is listening out there where perhaps they're starting out in something and there is a load of, and they can just resonate a little bit with a bit too much ego, just don't work quite as hard. Do you know what I mean? Don't take
Yeah,
it quite so seriously.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not sort of tapered straight over and all go and sit and live under a tree and meditate for the rest of our lives. That's
yeah.
not what I'm proposing at all. But yeah, just maybe have a bit of balance to it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, that you sort of alluded to something, an event happening in your life that sort of made you change the way you were thinking or maybe were living your life, whatever it was. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So uh, basically in 2011, so I mentioned the fact that I'd started my first business because I had a young child. It wasn't planned. I had
Mhm.
a young boy at 21 years old. I think back now, I didn't look old enough to have a child,
Yeah.
let alone be a father. Um, and by 2011, Harvey was now 11. And we went on the first night of our holiday to Greece. To be frank, at the time, I was mid building this next business. I was tired and just really looking forward to a break. And I put into bed on the first night of a holiday. And very simply, healthy young 11-year-old boy, I walked into the room. So, in fact, my wife at the time had walked in first, and he was face down in the pillow, dead. He passed away. And I tried my best to save him at the time. It was a very harrowing experience, trying to revive him. I won't go into detail in this because I've done a lot of other things in my motivational speaking. I'll probably leave it for the lead gen world people. But it was a very harrowing experience, and just sort of almost instantly, sort of everything that you value in life. And I guess when I say value in life, look, for anyone out there that has a child or is going to have a child, once you have a child, for any of us that are, I suppose, of a normal makeup parenting, then your entire life is built around your child. It just really is. Even if you've got a nice car and all those sorts of
Yeah.
things, fundamentally, if you're doing your job right as a dad or a mum, whether you're with the parent or not, the parent or not, your life should be entirely dedicated to making sure that that child is safe. That they have a nice upbringing. That's why I started the business. I wanted to make sure that Harvey had a good life. And suddenly gone. That's it. Doesn't exist. Subsequently, that my wife at the time, who was Australian, it wasn't his mum, decided she wanted to live back in Australia. I considered it for a period, but that was just going to be too great for me to move countries now. Sort of within a year or so of him dying. So it meant that over the course of the subsequent year, I also lost my marriage and my family home, and I just sort of sat then on my own, and I couldn't work anymore. I got someone else to run my business. There's no way. Running a 140-person life insurance business is a tough cookie anyway. Let alone doing it when you've lost your son. It was impossible. So I was kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So I spent a period of time then trying to. Do you know what? I thought I was recovering from grief. I
Do you
thought I was
ever though?
recovering.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. We can talk about this later. The answer to that question is no, but you have to have tried hard enough first
Yeah.
to accept it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to anyway. But weirdly, then when you've tried hard enough and long enough to get away from it to prove you can, the moment you do accept you tried hard enough, your body just goes, "Oh, I'm cool with this now," which is genuinely where I am today. I feel like I'm very lucky. I'm one of the few people that has been able to get to a point of, there are very few things in the world that can either get me down or kind of get me down for long. I'm trying to think of what they are. Don't get me wrong, there are still times with a client or with my new business where I will get pissed off for a bit. Don't get me wrong, I'm passionate about doing the right thing and I don't like it when that doesn't happen. But I do now rapidly calm down from things like that, and you won't find me pissed off for long. I guess in essence, because you really do realize the most important things. Is we were talking again before the call, when I look at what's happening with the world and coronavirus at the moment, I'm like, yeah, there you go. There you go, you guys. Here's what's really important.
Yeah.
For me, for example, building a £200 million business is not important. Building a business that gives me a nice, sustainable life, that's important. Yeah, a business where I know that my kids can be looked after, that's important. A business where I know that I can see the world a little bit, that's important.
Yeah.
But what really then happened was I'll come back to look, I made lots of mistakes. I don't beat myself up for them, but the guy I got to run my business, it was funny because I didn't really talk about this publicly for much at the time, but I now get lots of messages from staff, even at the time, who didn't leave me. The guy that ran my business, to be frank, lied through his teeth about everything going on in the business. I didn't agree with him on everything, the stuff I did know, some of the things anyway, but if you're a founder and someone is an MD running your business, one of the things I always try to weigh up is you're never going to agree on everything as a founder and someone running it. So I guess I allowed a degree of flexibility anyway. The other problem was, to be frank, Michael, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't care. I care about Adviser.io today, not too much because it isn't the most important thing
No,
in the
you had
world.
other things I think
But,
you're dealing
yeah,
with
it had other
that
things you're processing
obviously.
through. And by the time I'd recovered, I went to get back into the business. I was ready then. I'd been on this crazy dog sledding trip to Alaska, which, to be frank, was brilliant. I was out in the wilderness in minus 30, minus 40-degree temperatures for 12 days with an awesome guy called Wayne and his wife Scarlett, just dog sledding in the middle of nowhere. And it was one of the first feelings I had of how insignificant I am. And therefore, if I'm this insignificant, my feelings themselves are even smaller. And I was ready to come back to work. And when I came back to work, it took me about 24 hours. My awareness was back. Everyone has always said that's worked for me. I don't know if I can swear or not, but
Go for it.
my bullshit detector is massive, right? I can pick up usually
Yeah.
bullshit on anyone.
Yeah.
And it was even higher now because of what I'd been through. And I could just see what was going on. There was bullying going on in the business. There was, there was loads of horrible hard selling going on. The figures had been massaged a bit too much. It was an absolute shit show. And then I worked for a year to try and turn it around. But anyone that knows a life insurance business, they are very difficult businesses to turn around. And this was a bit too big to do it. A couple of things contributed. A year later, I had to liquidate the company. So as of 2015, I lost my son in 2011. As of 2015, in the space of 4 years, I'd lost my son, my marriage, my home, my business, my job, and every single penny I'd ever earned. I was down to zero. I had like a couple of grand left in my bank account. So I gone from being the guy that had, I had the powerboat, the 911, the Range Rover. I paid off a mansion, like a massive house with, everything in it. To
Did you ever have the feeling or tell yourself that this is just all too much?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, say too much is in. Here's the weird one. I think I'm lucky that I don't have that genetic switch for suicide, because the times when into my head it would pop in going, is this all worth it? And then instantly go, yep, you're going to find a way through this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd feel horrible. I had really bad anxiety and depression. So I do a bit of talking at mental health conferences now on mental health. And I spent a long period of time where, because remember, the other problem is for those of you that have, those people that have lost businesses, usually when you lose just a business alone, what usually happens is you go and lick your wounds for at least a few weeks to try and just recover from a year of trying to turn around. I didn't have that option. I had to drive. I'd spend a week or so just wrapping up the business in the office, still driving down to it. Then I had to find a job. I had no break. There was never a break. But the other problem was that what I realized is I hadn't really faced the grief of my son until that point, which is often what happens. Usually if you lose someone, quite often what can happen is you think you're experiencing grief, you're not. It takes another punch, then the real grief kicks in. So suddenly it was only 2016 really, in the middle of that, I started to face all that grief at once of Harvey, the business, my marriage, everything, going, what have I done? It was more actually going through my mind, by the way. So it was not, is it worth it? It's what have I done? It's like, what did I do wrong? What decisions was I too selfish? Did I, should I have done these things? Lots of shoulds going on. Lots of should I done this? Should I have done this? Should I have done this? That was really hard.
Yeah.
Should I have moved to Australia with my wife? Should I have done things differently with Harvey? Should I have been stronger after my son died to have gone back into my business sooner and seen what I'd seen? And I think lots of, anyone that's out there, like, I can't take those shoulds away, but I'll tell you, your job is to take the shoulds away.
Yeah.
When the shoulds are gone, it's great.
Yeah. Boy, so the business dissolves. Then what's next? Did you do what you said? You kind of sit around, lick your wounds, or what?
No, I couldn't. I had to eat.
Yeah.
I had to get a job. I had to eat, and I really had to. I lost my home for a second time, downgraded to a smaller flat, and then just started peddling. I remember going out every day, walking around London, just begging people for jobs. I'm just ringing up. Now the weird thing is my CV was, since I was 23. And I was now 37, was 14, 15 years of basically MD, CEO of my own business, dead child, now bust business. Would you hire me? I wouldn't hire me. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't hire me. I'd be like, I don't know where his health is going to go. It'd be like, I have no idea. So it was really hard. Likewise, a junior job, I know you can talk to me for 5 minutes. Would you really want me to work for you without feeling, unless if you're good, you don't feel threatened. Yeah, if you're not, I'm afraid it sounds arrogant to say, but I know I will be quite a threatening person if I'm to work for someone. I would be. And I guess I was facing those challenges, no matter how much I begged. However, I got some lucky breaks. I found a job launching a virtual healthcare business called Square Health for a guy in Windsor, which now I got the deals and power the deals for the likes of Vitality, which is a big insurer over here, for Liverpool Victoria, for British Friendly. Then after that, I went and I started my consultancy business, which is protectiongeek.co.uk. During that, I started to get the idea for a management training business called Think, Feel, Act, which is based on a management book I'd written and protected that didn't get used. So you could see all the ideas were starting to flow out.
Yeah.
And Adviser.ai was another one of those. And I guess in a way, I've dug out of the last 2 or 3 years, both. I don't know how it's happened, really. You just, in a weird way, you don't stop fighting, but in a weird way, you do. You just kind of accept that whatever's supposed to happen will happen.
Yeah. So when you tell me about this sort of stuff, I feel like, you were at a point where you had this company and things, and then you lost everything, and then you started to fight back for business and yourself. Are you still fighting back, or do you feel like you're at where sort of you're at, maybe at a different level? But
like right now, I'll be candid. If I don't sell, if I don't now, I showed you before. I'll show people on here anyway. So I'm ready to do my marketing campaign for Adviser.ai, where I've come up with a nice creative thing. You can see these. There are 50 of these supposed to go out to potential brokers. Because to be honest with you, much as I know people in the industry, if I just ring them up to sell them some software, they are not going to answer the phone to me. So think creatively. How are you going to? Now they're sat here. I've now got coronavirus coming in. Everyone's supposed to be working from home. The chances are I'm going to deliver these things and people won't even be in the office anyway. Right. So if I'm honest with you right now, this sense of contentment or happiness or acceptance doesn't come from the fact that I now have a business. I'm in the most terrifying moment. I've spent 2.5 years and, at least tens of thousands, if not now hundreds of thousands, the low hundreds of thousands of pounds developing this software. I've spent 3 or 4 months in beta. I have a bit of income from it. I have killed my consultancy business, ready to sell Adviser.ai. And now if I don't sell in the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to run out of money. Now, technically I run out of money. I won't run out of money. We always find a way. But right now, I'm in that terrifying moment of going, what's going to happen? But I guess maybe you get to a point where, my mum gave me a beautiful thing about a year or so ago, once I'd really dug out of the big anxiety and depression. And all it is a picture she found in a secondhand shop. And it says in there, only look back to see how far you've come. And I think now you start to get a sense of self-confidence going, mate, if you dug yourself out of that, then that's going to be easy. Do you know what I mean? It says it's going to be easy. It's going to be, you're going to find a way through it. You will find a way to make it work. And you're going to be mistakes to be made. I'm sure there are going to be issues that you come across, but you're still going to be here. You're still going to be alive. Now, I think it's a bit easier, ironically, for me to say, because part of my journey has meant that with coronavirus, I now face the mental health challenge of completely being on my own. I don't have any family, any children. I don't have a wife at home. I have none of those things. That has posed huge challenges for me. Clearly, that sense of loss. But right now, I understand what it must be like for someone that's in my situation where they've just got a business to this point, or their business in this point, and they've got those responsibilities. That's different. So I think I must also temper my positivity with the fact that there's only me to look after at the moment. In a few years' time, if I had a wife and kids, I think I'd be slightly less relaxed.
Yeah, but I appreciate the point of view, because I feel like it's very similar to mine, is that, keep looking forward and stay positive, but also balance in some respect, right? You have to weigh the
Yeah.
negative. You have to weigh negatives. You
Well,
can't be ignorant to them.
totally. Jim
Yeah.
Collins, Jim Collins, Good to Great. Yeah, another really seminal business book. You said I did it was mainly for my management training. I love some of these older business
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
And in Good to Great, he talks about the fact that face up to bare facts. You can't. I've got it in my management training that sometimes I can seem like the most positive guy in the world, but if sometimes you work for me, I can be really negative and find lots and lots of issues, loads of attention to detail, finding problems. That's a good thing to do in business, is to have that balance. If you just resolutely go, everything's going to be absolutely fine. Well, what? That's ridiculous. When I say I'm going to run out of money technically in 3 months, that's because I've done my cash flow based on my predicted sales, the money I've got coming in, what's likely to come in from consultancy. I've got that written out for the next few months, and I will continue to adjust it based on what happens.
Yeah.
I don't sit there resolutely positively going, everything's going to be all right. I also have that, yeah.
Yeah.
So for example,
which drives action. And we talked about this earlier, but it also drives thinking differently and out of the box and making adjustments. And sometimes out of that comes really good things, instead of just sitting back and
And it's both that combination. You mentioned the stress earlier, but also the relaxation that you find yourself. So, this is my second day of being on my own. I've come in here to the studio. I've got 4 desks, but no one else is here. I live 10 minutes walk from home. So I'm now effectively on my second day of personal isolation. Not because I've got anything. I'm just trying to follow the guidelines to stop me being a spreader.
Yeah.
Now I'm already feeling my mental health trying to adjust to that, because usually I would be going to the gym, all of those things would be part of my routine. So even the ladies that are usually in the coffee shop downstairs here in my sort of my shared workspace, I love seeing them as part of my routine in the morning. And now that's not there. The thing you've got to realize is that it's really quick in this coronavirus sort of environment that the lack of our normal habits will affect our creativity and our ability to solve. So we're going to be faced with challenges in running our businesses. That's going to happen. Whether it's we haven't sold enough yet, or leads go all over the place. I mean, funnily enough, there are some industries where leads are going through the roof. The costs are falling. Life insurance is one of them. Income protection, they're all falling at the moment. However, in businesses in general, that's what we'll be facing. Now, the trouble is, if we don't make sure that we maintain the right mental state, those challenges are going to really get to us, and they're going to keep forcing us down. Whereas if we can be clever and focus on our mental state first, every one of those challenges that comes up is going to be an opportunity, because we'll see a way through it, right? We'll find a way to go. For example, in 2 or 3 months' time, Michael, if you're, if it really does set in over here and you think, God, I can't run this event, well, as long as you're in a really strong mental health state, no matter where you've been, if you've been totally isolated, you are far likely to see a better opportunity out of that than if you just basically spent the next 2 months, not keeping your head in the right headspace.
Yeah, it's an amazing point of view that people have to take into consideration. Let's take a quick veer to the left here and talk a little bit more specifically about Adviser.ai. And my guess is a lot of it came out of generating leads at one point in your life, buying leads and turning them and converting them into sales. Tell us exactly what Adviser.ai is.
Okay, so I'll start with where I saw the problem at first, which is that one of the biggest issues with lead generation, I think, is what I always call the meshing. So produce some leads over here, usually on a website, and then someone over here rings them back. That's what's supposed to happen. Yeah. Now, there are two things that happen in that scenario. Yeah. Number one is I get some leads in, and when I call them back, I have to try and catch the person at the right time to get hold of them, for even for them to want to speak to me. In order to do that, I've got to ring people lots. I have to keep phoning out lots to get hold of them. But that, in essence, causes these people not to trust these people because I'm
Mm-hmm.
ringing you lots. Now, typically, these people do need phone calls. So in a lot of the lead generation areas that I'm talking about, we're obviously focused at first in the protection space or within the life insurance space. But there are many other areas where this is applicable, in that people do need to speak to one another. You know, if you go and submit, I don't know, for example, if you go and look for a property on one of the property sites over here called Rightmove, I'm sure you've got them over in the States. Usually, you know, I think they're called realtors maybe over there or something.
Yep.
They do have to ring you back and have a conversation. If you think about recruiters out there, they always have to be talking to you to find out, engage, you know, your level of interest, what you're looking for. There are so many different other industries this applies to. But the key is that what I thought was, hang on a second here. What it's not about doing, and that's where I think a lot of the world has gone wrong. A lot of the world basically took lead gen and said, oh, lead gen's going to die. Lead gen's not going to be here. Everything's going to move online. But that simply isn't the case, because ultimately the nuances of selling some of this stuff are too complex for online to do it properly. People still need to talk to people. The trouble is they want to talk to people and buy in a way that's right for them and at the right time for them. So what I did was I built Adviser.ai in the middle. And what Adviser.ai does is these people that they can't get hold of from over here get sent some text messages and some emails, which replicate a lot of what these guys say on the phone. So what I do is I script a lot of the protection advice or protection guidance or any of these other sales journeys that the salespeople would be doing over the phone, but I do part of that earlier. So what happens is if these guys can't get a hold of these guys, excuse my hands jumping all over the place, but if the telephony people cannot get a hold of these leads, then they send them these messages, which basically say, hi, Michael, sorry, I've not got a hold of you at the moment. Maybe I can help you online. And of course, what happens, you imagine getting a message like that on your phone, you think, oh, great, I can deal with that at a time that is right for me.
Right.
And obviously there's huge amounts of decision tree intelligence going on in terms of the scripting. And what it means is it ends up being this halfway house in the funnel between, I'm kind of interested, but I'm not interested enough to trust you enough to have a full on sales call yet. Now, what we're finding with our beta clients is that what this is doing is generating somewhere between an extra 10 and 15% extra revenue per month for the whole business, just from texting customers they can't get hold of.
Yep.
Which is bonkers.
Yeah.
Now, you think about that for an industry. If I'm a lead generator right now, all I'm trying to do is get these guys to get hold of my leads.
Yep.
That's all I want. Please get hold of them and try and sell to them. This is a win-win for everyone. Because for the lead generators, if the brokers are using that, helps. Mainly also because, of course, I've built the product entirely myself, so it's not VC'd, and it's a really low monthly fee that brokers are paying to use the bit of kit.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, and partly too, you're helping drive down. So there's a portion of leads that maybe no one will ever get a hold of, right? And there's probably a spectrum of interest and intent in those leads. But picking up the phone is obviously expensive too. And my guess is most salespeople are always looking for the next hot one. So they're forgetting about some of these other leads that maybe are interested, but just not picking up the phone at the right time. Timing is a big issue. So this probably obviously makes it more effective, but also drives down some operational costs to get a hold of those people and then subsequently more revenue.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah. So you got almost those two sort of revenue things. One is people that you wouldn't have got hold of.
Yeah.
And one's where you would have spent ages trying to ring them. You know, typically when I look, I've obviously got a lot of experience on the telephony side of things. And typically when you look at it, the ROI falls away after 48 hours on any of these lead sources. The cost of getting hold of each of those phone calls, getting the customer on the phone, suddenly shoots through the roof after 48 hours. And it's at that point when you really need to start using this to engage the customer in a different way. Because it's just sucking so much business. It's all of that time. And often when you're running any kind of call center or telephony-based environment, it's really hard to measure that. I always wanted to do what I called real profitability when I was running one of these things myself, which is to actually start analyzing and breaking down the cost, the real ROI of a lead, depending on when I got hold of it. And this
Yeah.
is why these ideas have always been in my head. It's like, hang on, I can't, I'm sitting there going, I've spent X amount on leads and I've earned this. I'm like, no, 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 no. You need to break it down by when you got hold of them and apply your operational cost in that way.
Yeah, and so based on that, the follow up question is: did you determine when it's not necessarily, you said 48 hours, but I'm sure there was a point, maybe 5 days or 6 or 10, where it actually you stopped. Was
Yeah,
there?
to be honest, it very much varies from business to business, because there are some
Yeah,
people that are some people that do. To be honest with you, that business was so long ago, I can't remember what we would have done. I
yeah,
think we then had a telephony team that would then ring older data. Yeah,
yep,
obviously inside GDPR guidelines and all this. In fact,
sure,
was
sure.
GDPR around? And I think so. This is the problem now. I'm trying to think. This
2003,
is
I
back in
think. Yeah, yeah,
2015 when I last did this myself in my business.
yeah,
Was that so? So if I think now to going on to the current businesses, really, there are many ways in which people work. So there are some people that just keep bringing the data in perpetuity with a team up until maybe 6 months. And the point is, it makes sense. If anyone's listening out there that isn't like a lead generator or a broker, remember, it makes sense, because sometimes you might inquire and you're not bothered for 3 or 4 months.
right,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
suddenly it pops up and you go, I'll deal with it now. And I think we see a lot of that in Adviser.ai. Instead of having to be handled by phone calls, I just get a message from an advisor, once a month saying, would you like me to help you? And of course, what happens is you're invited back in, and it's all personalized. It's from the advisor themselves. It's not a faceless company. It's not even just the brand of the company. It's from the advisor themselves.
yeah. And I love that it's text messaging too, right? So everybody's going to get that message. Everyone's going to read it. Whether they respond or not is a whole other story.
Mm-hmm.
But in light of
Mm-hmm.
what I think is happening, which is fewer and fewer people are picking up the phone, especially if they don't know the phone number that's their, the phone number, the
They're
call's
dining
coming
from,
from.
yeah.
I mean, is that what you're seeing too? I mean, are more and more people just simply not answering the phone these days?
Yeah, I'd say it's more to do with the like the spam checking that's come in place from the likes of, on your iPhone, and I
Yeah,
think Samsung have brought stuff in as well. So a lot more of that is preventing things. I do think there are people out there that end up doing like the phone spoofing, even though that's a very grey area. So they're calling from a mobile, a local number. But then
right.
people are wise to that, right? If you ring me, and I'm down in Frome in Somerset, if you ring me from clearly from Manchester, got a northern UK accent, and you ring me and there's been a local Frome number that I answer the phone to, your trust just shoots down straight away. I'm like, mate, you just
Yeah,
called, you're just pretending you're from Frome and you're not.
yeah,
So I personally think that some of these cheats people think might work and just don't.
yeah,
Customers are more and more wise to this. And the type of customer that's not wise to it, Frank, I'm not sure if I want them buying a product, because I don't know if they'll keep it or not.
yeah.
I mean, the type of customer who doesn't consider a product effectively in terms of the purchase is far less likely to keep that product in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for some of these products, particularly financial products, that is not a good customer base.
Are you guys using it initially on the first or second outreach in real time, or is it generally more of a nurturing process where you come in after the 48 hours?
It's generally more of a nurturing process. I think we've got various people that are using it in different ways.
Yeah.
I'd say what's typically happening at the moment is they're hitting it after that event. So I'd always recommend at the moment, for the types of customers the type of businesses we're working with first, that the phone call is the first one that's made out. A customer's
Yeah.
inquired for a phone call, ring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the only thing that stops these guys doing it, some of the guys doing it immediately after 48 hours or so at the moment, is simply resource at their end. So we're talking to some larger companies where it's going to take a lot longer. There'll be longer ball game to getting them on board. But the whole idea is that triggers Adviser.ai out of their CRM when it goes past 48 hours. At the moment, they're having to do manual uploads of CSV data. So when they're manually uploading the CSVs, they can't necessarily manage to do that once a day at the moment. They
Sure.
have to wait and do it once a week.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm really excited to find the larger opportunities where someone can do it after 48 hours. We've also got we've got a web widget we've developed as well. That's about to go live with our first beta client, Cavendish Online. They're about to put that live, where effectively what it does is if I'm looking at a set of search results online, or if you think about any of your lead generators out there where they do this, where the lead has been generated and nothing's happening, and maybe it's a weekend. So, weekend when I'm looking at a thank you page saying someone's going to get back in touch with you, it's a nightmare, because the trouble is we know that the traffic is cheaper at the weekends or out of
Yeah.
hours. So I end up bidding then anyway. Now, to me, what I've done is created a web widget where effectively this pops up as an advisor from the broker that I'm going to introduce to, and takes the customer on that sales journey online from that point. So imagine what can happen is, if I've just had a look on a Saturday morning for something, it pops up saying, hi, it's Luke here. Would you like a bit more help looking, with your search? It then does a really detailed fact find. And by the end of that, it says, right, I'm going to get back in touch. And on a Monday morning, the advisor comes in, or the salesperson comes in going, hey, basically, I've got this amazingly hot lead here, rather than just a bunch of random leads that were generated over a Saturday and a Sunday. So there are other ways in which we are developing to, map that connection between the customer and the advisor.
Yeah, that's really, really smart. One thing I heard you just say, and I've heard other people talk about, what it seemed to allude to the inability for buyers or brands to really build APIs with their partners, and they're still using Excel to upload data and do different things, and some things aren't necessarily in real time or triggering via automation. Is that the case, or am I just hearing specific things? So are brands able to effectively build an API with a partner like you in general, or is it still a struggle to find?
Yeah, if they want to. So as far as I'm concerned, it's never a struggle if it's worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think any brand, sorry, but that's just it. So if I ever hear someone saying, don't get me wrong, hey, look, there are opportunities for us to work with the technology that we've built. There are opportunities out there that are way bigger. If I think about a very large insurer that saw this during development, they've got they're one of the biggest D2C telephony players out there. And he said, I want this. And it would have been a massive deal, because it would have been a percentage of revenue increase. And they're an insurer. Trust me, this would have been massive. But the only way to do that was to run a hosted version on their servers of the kit. And I wasn't at the stage of the business to be able to do that. And I'm not quite at that stage now. Now, likewise, he wasn't necessarily prepared to take the gamble to pay for us to build them a hosted version. Now, is that therefore them being slow? Is that them? No, it's just him weighing up his business priorities, me weighing up mine, and that's what happens.
Yeah, right.
I often think when people use that, it's often a little bit of an excuse. And, if you have a real need that's important and you can show real value that's going to be delivered, then do it. Otherwise, time to reinvent. I can't now do that with this insurer. So what I've got to think is, right, put that on the back burner as an idea. How do I reinvent? And originally that was one of my plans for the business. I had to reinvent to go, right, just brokers now. Now, for example, I'm reinventing again because I can't send the megaphones through to people. So now I've got to think, what opportunities do I have in front of us before I can get hold of those people?
Yeah.
I can't speak for individuals. Yeah, look, it is definitely going to be, in some instances, you're going to find that bigger companies say, we're going to need an API for this. It's going to cost more to do it. Therefore, we're not doing it. I haven't sold the value of my bit of kit long enough. Wait a couple of years until we're really flying and they come back to me and say, we want this now. And I'll say, well, it costs twice as much now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get it.
That's the other angle to it,
Yeah. So, back to, sort of the answering of the phones and all that sort of stuff, and what, whether people are still picking up the phone. This really becomes more of an important piece to the puzzle of closing deals just in general, let alone adding more to it, but even maintaining sales. If sales are declining, less because less people are picking up the phone, this seems to be almost essential.
I mean, it's picking up the phone is absolutely crucial. I think the one of the biggest issues I find, is that, and I find this in my sales training. I've done a lot of life insurance sales training. There's a classic one. I listened to a client the other day, and a classic one I hear is people saying, "How are you?" And they clearly don't mean it.
Yeah.
Now, if I say how are you to someone, I mean it. All right. Even if I'm selling something, right? If I'm ringing you up and I'm selling you Adviser.ai, I actually mean it.
Yeah.
I want to grab these people by the scruff of the neck and go, you will then turn around and talk about the quality of the leads. And you don't even give a damn about the customer that you're ringing up. They don't fundamentally understand sales, which is a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Got to build a relationship, be interested in someone. Not be, I have this phrase, be interested, not be interesting. A lot of the world tries to be interesting these days. I mean, I know I talk a lot, I get that, but hopefully I'm interested enough in the rest of the world for there to be a bit of a balance in what I say and what I hear, and my ability to listen as well. But quite often what happens is if I'm ringing someone up, I'm interested in them. I want
Yeah.
to find out about them. And what happens is they ring up and they say, how are you? They don't really mean it. And they crack on and go, oh, you were interested in some solar panels then, were you? Like, what? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, oh, you're just selling straight off the bat. Well, you're not even that, you're just telling. And I think there is a dearth of sales skills out there. And I used to do this when I was a lead generation guy. For any of you guys watching that are doing lead gen, I used to test app my guys I was introducing leads to all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
I had a time when I remember one time in a secured loan lead that went off to, I would say, a very good company that I worked with over a long period of time. Very, very good company. But they had a sort of a rogue guy in there that had marked off my lead as fake. All right. So I put a lead in
So
with
you're,
my
yeah, yeah,
name and my
yeah, yeah.
number.
You're,
My
yeah.
lead was fake. So I was asked, I got on the phone. I spoke to my business development guy. I said, I want to speak to him. I got on the phone to the guy and I said, I want my 50 quid back.
Yeah.
You owe me my 50 quid, mate. You've just stuck my money down the drain. Now, in some essences, it means you get a reputation as a guy that's going to be kind of sort of, he's not going to pull any punches, but at the same time, I think that's where respect is built, right? It's like, if I'm working that hard, as I'm doing now with Adviser.ai, to build something, it doesn't mean I'm going to get everything right, by the way. Doesn't mean I'm going to get everything right. There are loads of things I'm going to get wrong, but I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that I build something that then works. If
Yeah.
the other people in that process aren't doing it, then it doesn't work. I'm finding out with Adviser.ai anyway. As I said with the how are you thing, that was based on a client who gets some leads. Remember, Adviser.ai does not sell the product for you. It generates some super hot leads. If you ring the customer back and you just say, how are you? Anyway, I'm just calling back, about your life insurance. Yeah, brilliant. So why were you looking?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hang on, you've just done a giant fact find for 10 minutes online.
Yeah.
There's no reference to where I've come from. Where are the salespeople paying attention to the customer journey? Now, again, if the customer journey is crap, so if you've got lead generators out there where they're being dodgy, where they're like, I don't know, they're bidding on one phrase and they're pretending it's something else on Google, well, that's your fault.
Yeah.
To me,
Well,
this is where this combination comes in, and it's
yeah.
where the fight, I guess, is really work.
Yeah. Well, and as a lead generator too, back then in that example, you're trying to provide a service to the consumer, and if the lead buyer's not holding up their part of the service, that's looking bad on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a responsibility to make sure that all
Totally, it looks
pieces of the
bad.
puzzle. Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned solar, and we've been talking about insurance and protective coverage and that sort of thing. Is Advisor.ai agnostic to verticals, or are you really just focusing on one right now?
What I'm going to say is it can and it will, but well, it can be.
Yeah.
I'm having to apply the bit we talked about earlier, which is don't be too egoic about this at the moment.
Yeah.
So, the idea is very novel, which is, when I say it to anyone, I give them a demo, they go, oh, why has no one thought of that? And I go, yeah, I know, it's cool, isn't it? I guess in essence, what I have to decide is whether I go more and deeper into the insurance space or sort of vertically this way across
Sure.
all of them. One of the key skill sets I realized that I do have is the ability to script stuff. If you look at my scripting in the insurance space, it's well known for being 45, 50 pages long in a life insurance script, and that's what goes online. And so there's something that I guess the secret sauce often that some of my early clients have said is what you're missing is this is not just the technology, this is my ability to sell in a certain area.
Yeah.
So what I'm really planning on doing is getting enough sales in within the protection space to then work with some other partners to work in to look at some of the other verticals.
Yeah.
And I would like to do that all in good time, but of course it's that balance we talked about earlier between pushing and just accepting where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And speaking of, pushing and bound, well, I've kept you here for over an hour talking about this stuff. So
All right, cool.
I suppose I should probably let you go here in a minute. But before we do that, how does somebody get a hold of you to talk about Advisor .ai and anything else they want to chat it up with you about?
So if you go, I guess there are a number of different things. If you go to advisor.ai, obviously that's you can contact me via that site.
Yeah.
In fact, you can book a demo for advisor.ai at the bottom of the homepage. You can email me at luke@lukeashworth.com. The other thing is just look me up on LinkedIn. I do have about, I think, 8,000 odd connections on LinkedIn. I don't know all of them. I have to hold my hands up. There's no way I know all of those connections. But
Yeah.
if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm the guy with the rather schmarmy. If you look up Luke Ashworth, type Luke Ashworth Adviser.ai into Google and LinkedIn, it will come up. That's probably the best way to get hold of me. I'm the guy with the schmarmy corporate shot with me in a white shirt staring out. For any of the mental health stuff I do, you can go to lukeashworth.com. And there's a lot of information about my mental health journey
Yeah.
for people to maybe get a bit of inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you getting on and spending time with me, and maybe we'll do it again too, because we talked surface level on so many different things that we really could talk more about, and I'd love to sort of follow
Yeah, sure.
your journey with Advisor, which I think is providing. I love companies that provide a service that truly benefits and helps individuals and brands convert more leads and consumers get their products better, and I think Advisor.ai is one of those. So hopefully we'll be able to reconnect
Thank
a little
you.
bit. I know I'm assuming lead generation world in October will continue to go forward. I think it will. I think it's plenty of time from now and getting through this whole coronavirus
Yeah.
mess. But we'll have you there as well, and I'm just looking forward to getting to know you and watching this advisor thing grow up. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Michael. I've really enjoyed it. I think, well, likewise, in the meantime, anyway, and there's a chat again. I think with coronavirus, we're all going to have plenty of time for
Yeah.
chats. So I think there's going to be lots of that no matter what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good stuff, Luke. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.